spider can, spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Okay, well, we are coming to a close to this amazing, phenomenal trilogy, as we are going to review the final film in the Spider-Man Sam Raimi trilogy. Now, this is commonly known as the least favorite in the trilogy for most people. In fact, it's known to be hated by the director himself, Sam Raimi, which I find interesting anytime something like that happens. But this really wasn't exactly Sam Raimi's fault, I feel like, for how messy the movie really is. I feel like it definitely goes to the studio, which a lot of people would probably agree with. However, I still do think this is an enjoyable, good Spider-Man movie, but not a great Spider-Man movie, and not the conclusion I feel like we all deserve. Now, of course, everyone says, well, Sam Raimi didn't want Venom to be in the movie, which kind of does mess up the whole plot as well. But then there's Sandman and the decision that Sam Raimi decides to make, which I don't even need to say out loud. I think we all know what I'm about to say. But you know what? I'm going to talk about it anyways, and I'm going to say it out loud. I don't care. Why the heck did they decide to have Sandman be the killer for Peter Parker's parents? The whole drive to the first two movies was Peter Parker's guilt because the person that killed Uncle Ben was someone that Peter Parker decided not to stop. So why would they do this? I'm sorry, but I thought Sam Raimi really, really understood what made his first two movies good and what drove his first two movies to be such masterpieces. But why would he make this? This just doesn't make sense to me. I understand, oh, well, there was a lot of things they were adding during production. A lot of things the studio forced him to do during production. But I don't think this was one of those things. They forced Sam Raimi to do Venom. Sam Raimi wanted to do Sandman. So this doesn't make sense to me. Why? 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 Okay, so some people might not understand why this makes me so mad. Imagine if Darth Vader apparently didn't kill Palpatine, meaning that him being the chosen one didn't really make sense. It was completely pointless and didn't actually have a purpose, and he wasn't actually the chosen one and didn't do anything to bring balance to the Force. Oh wait, never mind, they already did that. Okay, I know that was a bit of a rabbit trail, but that ruins the first two films, and this is supposed to be the third movie. This is supposed to be the conclusion. So yeah, I'm gonna be a little mad. Okay, now beyond that god awful idea with Sandman, what else is there to talk about this movie? Well, there's the fact that holy crap, why is there so much going on? Like, if I'm being honest, the best way I could describe this movie's plot structure would basically be the equivalent of a 5-year-old doodling a page completely. Like, there is so much crap in this movie, it's not even funny. Like, seriously, Harry fights Peter Parker at the beginning of the movie, and then loses his memory, and then later we're introduced to Sandman, who apparently killed Uncle Ben's father, and then we get Venom in the movie, because why not? Why is there so much going on? Why is there so much going on? Why are there so many plot points? Why are there so many villains? Why? Why? Why did you do this to me, Sony? This was a great trilogy, and then you just decide to give us a complete mess in a way with the plot structure. This movie could have been a masterpiece, but instead it's just good because of you. But yeah, this movie is definitely a complete mess, and you can tell Sam Raimi didn't intend for it to have this much crap in it. Like, seriously, there is so much going on. Well, there's so much going on. Why is there so much going on? It just doesn't feel right, you know? Now, I don't hate this movie, okay? Surprisingly. I'm mainly doing this stuff for comedic, over-exaggerated reasons. But it does have a lot of flaws. Even if you like this movie, you can't deny that there are so many problems with this film. There are so much stuff going on. There is just bad decisions that were made and decisions you could easily cut out of the movie, and it would be so much better. Like, seriously, while there were the villains, the main three focuses were on Harry, Peter Parker, and MJ. And guess what? They had Sandman and Eddie Brock, and then it just kind of becomes a mess. Now, there are great conclusions and great things that are ended. I think Harry Osborn in this movie, the way they ended his character was actually pretty decent. I think that was a good positive about the film, was Harry Osborn just, I don't know, it was just a nice conclusion to see his character arc finally end, even if it could have been a lot better developed if they just cut the movie down or, like, just cut stuff out of it. it would have been a lot better, but it was still solid for what it was, I think. And another thing I'll say is Sandman. Well, I'm sorry, that idea of like him killing Uncle Ben is just terrible to me. I still really, really love him as a character, and I think that idea of Peter Parker forgiving him, well, I very much disagree with that. The whole thing of I don't think this should really happen at all. I think it's a very great way to end the movie. I think that's just an amazing way to end the movie in a way. It's very heartwarming and just shows Peter Parker has grown as a character from the first movie to the last film, which is what these movies are really all about. In the first movie, he learned responsibility. In the second movie, he learned how to control and to be able to balance being Spider-Man as well as his normal life. And in the third movie, he learned about revenge and letting go. And I think that's what's so heartwarming about this trilogy. And while it could have been so much better, they just took Venom out of the movie and they didn't add all this other crap in, it still is a good conclusion. Now, I'm going to move back to negatives because this is a completely mess of a review. But what the heck was Eddie Brock? I'm sorry, but why? Why would you do this to me? Why? In the Spectacular Spider-Man, he was such a great character. And the thing is, this was a year after Spider-Man 3. Why? Well, why? Why is it so bad in here, but so good in like a year ago? Why? Why is it so just why? You know? Like, I'm not saying Eddie Brock was awful. I don't think he was awful. He just wasn't very good, to be honest. I understand why he would be so angry at Peter Parker, and then that's why it drives him to end up fighting him in the end of the movie, because he kind of just ruined his entire life. He really did destroy everything that Eddie Brock really had. But the thing is, I just don't care. There's just too much in this movie for me to really care about this. And if you really think about it, Eddie Brock doesn't do much in the grand scheme of things. He's just kind of in the movie, and he kind of acts like he plays a bigger part than he actually does. That's pretty much it for negatives. The decision with Sandman sucked. It's too messy, and Emo Peter is, well, Emo Peter. Well, there's one thing that I honestly have no idea whether I consider it a negative or a positive, but that's right. It's Emo Peter. Now, I'm very mixed on Emo Peter because, for on one hand, he hits Mary Jane, and it's one of the best scenes in the movie because, not because he hit Mary Jane. I'm not one of those people, but it's just such a phenomenal emotional sequence. But then there's just the hair gel, which I'm sorry. Okay, these movies are cheesy. They're fun. I actually kind of think the dance sequence is kind of funny, but that's a bit much, you know? Like, how does he automatically grow hair gel and eyeliner? I'm sorry, that's just too dumb. That just doesn't make any sense. It just why? Why is he an emo kid? This just doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. I mean, I think it's a decent idea that has some positives to it, but then there's like stuff like that. Now, Peter Parker does some insanely questionable things, and I get it. He kind of has an ego. But how does he think this part is okay? Which, like, if you don't know what I mean by this, there's this whole scene where him and Gwen Stacy kiss, and he's like Spider-Man or whatever, and she thinks she's kissing Spider-Man. And then, of course, obviously now Mary Jane knows that, you know, that's Peter Parker. You know, that's her boyfriend or whatever. So, of course, she gets upset, rightfully so. And then Peter Parker's just like, why would you do this? He doesn't even understand what he did wrong at all. Like, he doesn't get what he did wrong. He just does it. How I know Peter Parker is kind of a clueless guy. He's a very antisocial guy, but even with an ego, how does he think this is okay? I'm sorry, but this is such a jerk move that not even the most clueless person could understand this as just being okay. How do you understand this as being okay, Peter Parker? Please tell me how. Now, even if it is a very, very flawed movie, with things I do quite like about it, you can't deny that it's very much a fun time. This movie is an absolute blast. The cinematography and practical effects very much add to this, I feel like. It's so big and grand, and that really adds to the entertainment value, especially in the action sequences. The action sequences are so big, over the top, and fun, and it's basically the first two, but cranked to the max of complete insanity. And I think that's what makes this film so entertaining, fun, and just something that you could put on and just have a great time with. Now, it definitely has its flaws. It is a very, very flawed film. But I think overall, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 because of its good moments and because of how insanely entertaining it is as a movie.